Welcome, everyone, to the Catholic Global Seminar. We're delighted that you're with us. And if you're here today with Dr. Sally Julian and myself, you are going to be learning about advancement and development. Couple of things real quick. What do we hope you'll get? Number one, just a few cautions and quick tips so that you have some confidence. And number two, that you have that confidence to know that it isn't about you, that it's about the mission and our need to get resources for the mission. I had to do that as a high school principal and president. I occasionally dabble in it now and certainly did as superintendent of schools and is working for the Cardinal for the To Teach Who Christ Is campaign. But Dr. Sally Julian, who is joining me today, will give her brief introduction, and then you'll learn more about us and this experience in advancement as we move along. Sally?
Hi, I'm Dr. Sally Julian, and I am the Associate Dean for External Relations and Advancement in the College of Education at DePaul University. I've been here for 18 years and had a variety of hats, and I am so pleased to be in the position now of a development officer and external relations person. It has given me a wealth of knowledge. I started out as an elementary school teacher in Chicago Public Schools, worked my way up to administrator, and actually worked for the Illinois State Board for a number of years before coming to DePaul. And it's just been such a rich experience, and I've learned so much about advancement and development that I'm hoping that we can share some of our thoughts and ideas with you today to help you in your path and your career.
Thank you so much, Sally. And our goal is indeed to advance the place. Developing takes some time, just like developing a piece of film. So these 10 steps we hope will be a little bit valuable for you. And one of them is actually to be able to talk about the mission, to be able to talk about the deepest purpose of why you are doing what you're doing, for whom, for what. If you can do this personally, and you can do this in a way that is terribly short, people have very short attention spans. You think if you're a teacher, your class has short attention spans? Let me tell you, a donor doesn't give you the amount of time it takes to ride an elevator from the 1st to 7th floor. So you've got to have your speech ready. You've got to have your ideas ready, have them polished, know what you want, and then be open to really listening with 2 ears. Sally, what do you think about those?
Well, I definitely agree, sister. And I know our 4th bullet point, your elevator speech. It's so important to be able to articulate clear and concisely the information that you're trying to convey to your donor. And one of the things that I participated in recently, which I thought really I didn't think it would be as valuable as it was an exercise where we actually took our elevator speech or our case in point, and we called our peers up, or you could even call yourself up, and you give your elevator speech to yourself. In listening to it, it provides you with the idea of what you've said, how you've said it, and you're also the listener now, so you understand where you need to maybe improve or make it more concise or even be clear. So I would underline that word, practice, practice, practice. It sounds like I know at some points you feel like we can go in and I know what I'm going to say, but when you really know what you're going to say, like a good speech provider, it's actually going to give you much more confidence in being able to just control.
Thank you. It forces you to be compelling, forces you to be personal, forces it to be real, and forces you to get to the point right away of why what you're doing is so important. And if you know and you're able to say that succinctly and with power, people will listen, and then you get to listen to them. Because you'll be able to know your facts. You're going to be able to know your institution or your mission, your cause so well that you will have the data to be able to say, hey, this is what we do and why we do it so well, or this is even how we could do it better. We know that this is what we do now. These are our dreams for what we're going to do in the future. Often when I was raising money, I would face issues, maybe people being disappointed as alumni, or frankly, the church's sex abuse scandal. You've got to think about ahead of time what you think the issues might be that a donor would raise and have a simple answer, not to dismiss them, but to be able to refocus on what you're trying to do. It's very helpful, therefore, if you have some very simple materials that you can be able to give out, a pamphlet, a brochure, 1, 2 pages. Even if you're only have that one little colored printer, that you're able to generate something that is interesting and powerful, that tells your story, makes that ask for you. Then you can always send them elsewhere. You can send them to other portals or to a website or to further information, invite them to visit with you. The first start is to prove that you are credible, that you really know your stuff and you know why you're there, and what the impact your work is doing.
And I would say, number one, data, 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 data. When you're working with people who you're asking for funding for, most of them have funding. And the reason they have funding is because they work in positions and professions where they know what the bottom line is. So please know what your bottom line is. If you don't, when you talk about issues and defining long and short-term goals, if you get a question on that, you're stuck. And that has happened to me in the beginning where I was asked about data and didn't have it. And it really delayed the whole process. Going back to and your data should be clear and simple and objective and fair. Don't hide the issues, as Sister said. Anticipate them, put them in if you need to, but be able to defend them and be able to talk to the good. So, for example, when you're asking people for money, most of the time we're asking for money for improvement. So much of the discussion should be about what you want to improve. So if your data is a little weak, you're talking about the fact that you want to improve your data, and more resources can help you either build different supplies, different materials, new participants. So don't shy away from the issues as well.
Absolutely. So your data is accurate, it's transparent. If you don't know it, it's okay. If anybody's listening to you, either in writing in a general appeal or in person, if they've read that far or have listened to you that far, they're willing to have you say, hey, I'll find that out for you. And then you'll be able to follow up if you don't have that piece of data or that answer that a donor is looking for.
Sister, can I give one more point on that? I just want to go back. I just worked with a program director, and she provided a PowerPoint on a program, and we went through the PowerPoint, and she wanted to take a couple slides out because she said, the data doesn't look great on here. And I said, no, we want to share that with the donor because that's really the area that we need help with improving on. And a follow-up conversation with the donor after they provided the gift said, I am so glad that you provided a very full picture because now I see where I can help. So that's a really good point about just make sure that you give the accurate data because it will help you.
Absolutely. And it helps you in the long run for your own credibility. And you're on the line as well as your institution. So as you listen to you'll find out whether or not their ability to give matches their willingness. Some people are very impassioned, but don't have the resources to be able to share. And you'll be thanking them for even the smallest of gifts. Others have tremendous capacity, but they're really not interested in you or your mission. And that's going to be realistic, and you're going to have to adjust your expectations there. You often, by listing, will find out some very cool things that they might be interested in. After you've shared your data and what your dream is, they'll be talking to you. They'll be asking your questions, opening up their own relationships and their own feelings. And of course, you're taking private notes, quiet notes that you're going to be making later to be able to see, okay, what is this person's interest, relationship, their reservations, so that you know more about them and really value them as persons, not just as givers. This you can do with both very positive, with both personal and general approaches. You can do this both by mail, because you're going to get some feedback back from surveys as you do that kind of a general mailing or general appeal, but you certainly will do it when you meet with a donor in person. Don't worry, too. Some people will say, well, I can't help you, but you should follow up with someone else, or here's somebody that maybe you ought to talk to. Write that down and thank them and say, would you want to go with me to talk to them? Or may I tell them that you referred me? Creating those links and those relationships becomes key.
I think I absolutely agree with your sister. And in working at DePaul over the last few years, and when I got switched to advancement, many people who knew me as an educator said, Sally, can't see you asking for money, and I don't think I could ask for money. And as I say to all of them, I don't really ask for money. I ask for people to participate with me on a journey of potential and possibility for themselves as well as me and my institution. So relationships. As Sister said, sometimes people are not willing to give as much as they can. But, that's our real challenge, to see if we can really engage them. Because in most cases, when you're doing something and you're asking for something that is really important, if we really work and build relationships and partnerships, you would be surprised how many people change their minds and do give. The other thing too is note interest in relationships. There's two kinds of advancement. One is human resources and one is financial. And don't ever underestimate the human resources, because sometimes the people that they can connect you to, in fact, I have an example. We actually talked to a couple the dean and I met, and we said, you should come learn more about the College of Education. And they said, well, we would love to, but you should meet our daughter. Over the course of the time, their daughter, who is not an alum from DePaul, has actually supported one of our programs to a degree that we cannot even believe. So please don't ever underestimate relationships, because they can be the secret to many things that are good in your future.
Amen. Because really, people give to people. And it's important to then know about those people. Note what you found out as you met with a donor. Get it right. This is so crazy. Did you ever get a letter that says, "Dear Ms.?" I get "Dear St. Paul." And I'm not St. Paul. Get their names right. If your system is not able to generate a custom name, then you say, "Hi, Sally," at the bottom. If it says "Dear Sarah," it's Julian, you can say "Hi, Sally," and show that you've read it and you personalized it, you signed it. It unifies all your contacts by having even the simplest of databases. Some of these are very sophisticated. Many of you won't be able to afford that sophistication, but start on a simple Excel sheet and at least start to get it down. Begin to differentiate your approaches. Know who's interested and able. Know who's interested. Know who's able, and then be able to treat these folks, especially those who have given to you before, differently. Sally mentioned relationships. Constantly connect and refine those relationships. And if you can, build a team to help you, even if informally. So if it's taking that daughter along, if it's taking somebody in the department along, if it's taking one of your best counselors along, if you're trying to raise money for a counseling department, that's what you do.
Absolutely. And as Sister said, it's relationships. Find ways to connect and refine what you do. Your work is not transactional. No matter what anybody says, it is not transactional, meaning that if something isn't happening right now, it doesn't mean it can't happen in the future. And if you don't work at it, it's not going to happen. Simple phone calls, sometimes little gifts, something that you've remembered about a person. And, I will say this, as you move ahead, you may have to start keeping a tally and not remember everything about everybody, but you should make your list. And when somebody likes a certain area, a certain book, would be interested in a certain lecture, invite them, reach out to them when you're not in the process of asking them for something, because to build connections with either people, in fact, almost every time in my first interactions with people, I sit there, and at the end of the interaction, I say, "You should meet so and so," and that is one thing you should look at your institution and your organization, because you should have a list of so and so's. And if you don't, you really need to look, because they are a very, very big resource in helping you move ahead and make relationships for your area.
Amen. And you always know you have a win if you can get them on site. If you can't get them on the site, next best thing is pictures, is short video, something that really opens up their eyes to see with passion what you're doing. because you're going to be expanding your approach. There are many ways to approach a donor. Obviously, well, a lot of us get that direct mail. Direct mail is not very effective. It's about 3%, about 8% of people read it, according to most data. But it's a great way to start if you have nothing else. Social media is a little cheaper than mailing out that mail or that brochure that may wind up in the wastebasket. So to be able to we saw this success with GoFundMe pages. I would warn about events. We'll put that caution in just a little bit later, but events to connect people once we get these masks off and get back together can be very powerful. And they don't have to be events that you even have to host. They could be onto events of things the organization are already doing. It's the personal contact, it's picking up the phone. I'm going to be very honest here. I think most pastors blew it during the pandemic. I think they could have started at the beginning of alpha list of their parishioners and gotten on the phone and called everybody. How are you doing? Even once during these 2 years, people would have known that you care. You're not an envelope. You're it. How are you doing? Just thinking of you, letting you know that St. Cunegunda cares. It really is a powerful thing to be able to, again, build on credible relationship. Targeted campaigns are fun, especially when you know exactly what you want and you've had a bunch of people getting involved in a strategic plan to know what you want. Maybe some of those folks on your plan will be the ones who actually can help you meet those targets. Annual fund appeals are very powerful, and I would say for most educational institutions, it's the way to start. One easily defined thing that gives donors many options. We'll talk about what those options could be in a minute, but to be able to have across different platforms, use the same pictures, use the same materials, use the same message once a year to be able to get the news out about what you're doing and, frankly, the compelling needs you have to continue to do it and to do it better.
And sister, I absolutely agree. And in terms of all the approaches that are here, I would say that I see this. I know on our PowerPoint it's linear, but it really is a sort of circle. And when I look at this, I put personal context right in the middle, and then I would do a circle where all of these things connect. I think in order to have all these things be connected, you have to really work on your personal context as well. So that way, when you are doing direct mail or social media or events, you can actually have people invited who you can invite that you know and who will come because they know you. And I think in all these aspects, I just have to say that was a lesson I learned, not in my role as advancement, but I was actually worked with a person in the advancement office, and she had an office next to one of our priests who was in a ministerial role. And it was interesting because every time I went into her office, I heard the priest through the wall call people just to say hello or to remind them of an event. And I thought about that and thought about it, and I thought, every time we needed help, we could go to that priest and say, hey, do you know so-and-so? Do you think you could connect us? And he could. And I really realized the reason he could connect is because he had connected in so many other ways. So I absolutely believe you have to expand your approach, but make sure that without the personal contacts, your approach, as the sister said, they're not going to be as effective as you hope.
Thank you. So you're going to determine what I would call the rate of return carefully on each one of these approaches. You're going to especially do this when you have an event. If you're going to have an expensive event that is a lot of money and involves a lot of work from a great number of volunteers, and your rate of return is not going to be very good, you might want to ask yourself, why am I doing this? Unless it's a fundraiser. Unless you know that this is another step for relationships and you're not concerned about the fundraising piece of it necessarily, that you are, as we referred to earlier, developing the time, talent, and treasure by engaging people in one thing. But the problem with events is some people go ahead and that's all they do. And that becomes, frankly, fairly exhausting. You need to be able to say, what kind of rate of return would I have by bringing people together personally to really celebrate, to really raise up our mission, to launch a strategic plan, to launch a campaign, to celebrate an end of some great thing, and just be able to understand some of the reservations around events that I think our church does a lot of kind of fundraising, not fundraising. Understanding grants and corporate giving, they take time, man. If you don't have somebody to help you, please be careful. They take a lot of tracking, a lot of care. And again, you're not likely to get onto a corporate or a grant giving list unless you have some kind of a relationship, or that grant giving body has made a direct invitation to you to apply for that grant because they believe in your mission, or you've reached out to them first. Know any total cost before you outsource. People love to do your mailings for you. They love to do these big time things for you. I'll create these materials. Just make sure that you know that rate of return from what you're going to get. I always say, don't give a wish list. Create a menu. Create broad categories. My very first capital campaign was very modest. I was a brand new high school principal, and they just wanted to raise $5 million. And it was the athletic director and the head of the campus ministry who showed me, we're running out of room in campus ministry. The chapel, frankly, is 50 years old and shabby. We need a second gym. Look at this field. Look at the weeds. Look at everything. And I was like, oh, geez. So we had a religious component in the chapel. We had an athletic component in the things we were going to do around athletics. But I knew from talking to parents that there were so many people that needed scholarships. So we made sure that there was a menu built in for student scholarships. So it wasn't a wish list. Hi, I need a new PowerPoint. We need X number of computers, but put technology in there as a broad piece of a menu. Then you've got something targeted, yet not so specific that it looks like you're checking off a wish list every year. Let them know that you're strategic. Have a longer term strategy so that it shows that you're a Catholic organization that's looking for growth and looking for ongoing service in different ways.
I agree. All of these points are so important. I'm thinking about the creating menus, not wish lists, and thinking about how you really should have a menu. You should have broad categories of in areas of your institution that you need support for, to be able to sort of a bag of tricks where you pull it out. And Sister is so right. When you create wish lists and you say, I want computers, here's an example. We met with a donor once, and everybody decided that this donor should give scholarships. And they thought, they were absolutely sure that that's what she wanted to give. And so we didn't create a menu of anything else. And the donor said, oh, I don't think scholarships are sexy. I'd like to give to something else. And totally stopped the whole conversation. So from then on, that was a lesson that I learned, that first of all, we didn't listen. We didn't do any of the pieces that we did through 1 through 5. And so you want to listen, but then you also have to have broad categories so that you can quickly move the agenda to when you're hearing what the person is interested in and what they're not interested in. Because people will give to things that they have passion for. And just because they don't have passion for it, it doesn't mean you don't need it, but that's not going to be something that donor will be interested in. And so you want to move it to something that they may be interested in giving to.
Thanks, Sally. What a great example. So that's going to actually build your credibility. You know who you've had a relationship. Even if someone gave you $5 in the mail and you thank them and use their right name, you have a prior relationship. So you can build your credibility with that thank you note and by showing them exactly where things went. So your idea of opening up, honoring their gifts, tracking who came to an event, that you can write a thank you even for coming without an ask. Again, building that relationship. Always report any impact that gift has had, especially at the end of it, to that individual donor and to the broader community. Because the broader community, you can say, look, we had this many people interested in this. Look at what we've done. So it could be, hey, you could be in Africa, and it's kids with new books and a new blackboard, and you could be here, and it's building a new art wing. Who knows what it was, but you're able to show that you moved the dirt around, that you have indeed done what you said you were going to do, and you fed this back to anybody who cared. So creating those feedback reports, even as things are in progress, becomes tremendously important. My biggest bugaboo, too, and one of the things that I've always insisted on ethically, legally, morally, is to honor restricted gifts. If somebody says to you, I want to give, but I want it restricted to this, it needs to go to this. If you didn't want that, then you and your conscience have to say, thank you, I love you, but I'll find a different match for you as a donor. But if you take that money, you need to spend that money in the way that it's done. You will kill your credibility if they don't see those funds go to where they said, or they see huge administrative costs subtracted from their funds before it reaches what their purpose was. So that's another piece of that data to track, but another piece of our own spirituality as advancement officers that we have to hold to.
Well, can I tell a Sister Mary Paul story for the honor restricted gifts? So we recently, several years ago, we were able to reconnect with an alum who had been sort of giving, but had not really had a relationship with us. And she provided a relatively small gift and asked it to go to Catholic teachers. And so I reached out to Sister Mary Paul, and we made sure that the award was given to a teacher who was deserving and in our program. And then we went on to share that result of the small gift with the donor. Sister and I traveled out there, and the donor provided what DePaul considers to be a major gift and has become a very good friend of DePaul. So in honoring where people give their gifts, when they say they want it to go somewhere, it's probably because of a passion, an internal need that they want to, something that they want to do for themselves as well, that they want to give back to a certain portion of the community that helped them. And so I saw that absolutely. And so many people might say, well, it was a small gift, nobody will know. They wouldn't know. But if we didn't go back to her and share, and I guess that would be the other point I wanted to say on this slide, there's no gift too small to not honor and not to say thank you for. I'm really fortunate to work for a leader in the College of Education that when anybody gives a gift, no matter how small, we let them know that it's very, very important and very important to our goal to do the best for our students. And I will express this one caution. So many times we publicize the major gifts, the big gifts. And so many of you are going to also hear, well, I can't hear, I'm sorry, lightning. I can't give $1 million, or I can't give those big gifts. But we come right back with, we really appreciate any gift, and any gift that you give us will go a long way. And our leadership tells that story of how important all of the gifts are to us. So that's another piece as well.
And lightning does strike, Sally. When you take the time to sign a thank you note personally, huh? So even for those small initial gifts, people are shocked. Hey, you've actually done this. And I remember night after night taking a stack of things home and signing them. And if I knew the person, making sure to put a note on. Again, developing those relationships and being able to say, this is what we did. So honoring those gifts, sharing it back. This is credibility. It allows you to come back. And this is where it's important. Have an attitude of gratitude. Grace gratis means gift, right? And it's God's love, God's grace, gift. So the more you thank and thank and thank again, as personally as possible, that's exactly what you should do. My little rule was I needed to give them information or contact them by phone, in the mail, just, hey, happy birthday, especially if it was a major person, without making an ask, just sending them that brochure. A lot of people like to be sure that everything goes in, that every time there's an envelope stuck in everything. Well, that's fine for your general donors, but once somebody is a repeat donor and a true giver, you may want to take that out and instead take out that envelope and write on the top, I think you'd like the article on page 3, or see what your stuff did, because that's a different category. You're differentiating what usually goes out to a very general donor who you do deeply appreciate, but it's a little different than somebody who's just given you a very large gift to suddenly get another envelope in the mail. Frankly, that's annoying. So find creative and inexpensive ways to keep in touch. Just a quick email, that call, that text they give you, whatever it might be, to build that in. Also, if this person is close, or even if they're not, now that we're all great Zoomers, go ahead and invite them to leadership and planning. A lot of people use advisory councils or create a small advancement committee, or sometimes just a planning committee or oversight committee. If you can engage people, that's wonderful. Many don't want to be. Sometimes, I'm giving you my money, don't bother me. But others do want to be more deeply involved with your mission.
Absolutely. You can't thank people enough, and you can't keep in touch enough. One of the ways to keep in touch that I learned early on is to put some of your people down on your calendar going forward, like the 6 months, where just put their names and schedule time that you sit down and you actually make a phone call that really isn't, it may be moving the relationship forward, but it's just a touchstone where it's a hello, how are you? I've had a lot of conversations where people have shared whether they're vaccinated or not this year, and keep in touch on that and goals. And I think it's so important. And this is my wish for all of you who are watching today, that you enjoy these conversations as much as I do. So when I call people, I really make it a time where I just want to sit down and have a conversation and consider these people. As we say, you're a friend of DePaul, that you really are a friend of ours. And we really do appreciate you. And we really do want to keep in touch, not when just you're doing something for us. And so I think that's a very, very nice way to keep yourself active with your donors and with partners. And then the other thing too, sometimes most of the people will say to me, how is DePaul doing? It's my opportunity to say, DePaul's doing great. We're doing great. This is great. The students are doing great. Everything, or if we're not, to say, well, we're working on this, but we're doing well. Because what we also want, going back to that human resource, is to have a number of people out there talking about DePaul, making a difference, building awareness, because we not only need financial resources, but we also, when we have people who are connected to us, we want them to help build awareness of the quality and the goodness going on at DePaul, so that we can fill our seats with students and have people participate with us. So I would say that would be my thoughts on that, sister.
Thank you. And no matter what level that donor is, even the smallest one that you've managed to get through mail or an electronic request, they're the ones who can, by knowing that you have that gratitude for them, they'll talk well about you. Word of mouth is very powerful, and word of mouth spreads. People are looking for bang for their buck. So no matter what I'm giving, I want to be able to know that it's had a definite impact, and you'll be a gift to them when they're able to give to you at whatever level they're able to. So you need to be able to ask. The toughest thing is to ask. I never thought I'd be asking for money ever. But as Sally pointed out early on, we're not really asking for money. We're asking for our mission. And if you know exactly, in a sense, what you need, and you're able to go, okay, it's not about me. It's not about me. It's not about me. And people who are kind enough can get you to somebody who has the willingness and the ability to give, and get you to practice with them a little bit to get some easy wins with some of these personal ones, even if it's on a small level, just to practice being able to take that gulp and to ask. Otherwise, it's a very bad duck shoot. It's ready, aim, 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 aim. You got to eventually fire. It's a violent image. I don't mean to use it, but you know exactly what I mean. You have to be able to ask. So practice, just to practice the elevator speech, practice the ask, and define Define that ask in your general written materials, and again within your general fund with a menu. And then if somebody says, which they most often do as you're developing a list of donors, especially at any higher level, they'll say, I need time to talk to my husband, to my wife, to my significant other. I need time to talk to my banker. I just need time to think about it. Then, okay, that's fine. Just say, when can I get back to you? So in a sense, you're a salesperson, but not a pushy one. You're a loving one. And so you're saying, all right, thank you so much for considering it. We are so grateful. May I get back to you in a week? Would that be enough time? And then you follow up to find out how they want to get back to you to do that.
Right. And I guess in the concern of contradicting myself, I'm going to say something about the ask. Where earlier in the slides I said I don't ask people for money; I ask them for potential and possibilities. That's not necessarily true. I do ask for money, and if you don't do the ask, which I have, I happen to have an example where I was at a fundraising event that we participated in, and it was during COVID, and it was online, and we reviewed all the components of the fundraising event for a very good cause. And I suggested that we move the ask piece up to 2 earlier in the program. And they had it at the end. And for some reason, that didn't happen. And so when we did the event, because it was almost the last piece, people thought it was over and left. And then the power went out for the person who was going to do the ask. And so we had this beautiful event that we took months to create and no ask. So then we had to figure out how we could go back to everybody and say, thanks for coming. And now we did have something. So you do really ask, and I would remind you that when you're asking, to formulate your ask where you know what you want in the broadest, in a sort of broad way, because you don't know what you know what you want. You don't know really what they may have to offer. So you don't want to put them in an embarrassing situation that says, well, I couldn't do that. So you want to make an ask in a way that gives them flexibility to understand what you're asking for, but also be able to see if they could do it in the way they could afford.
Exactly. So if you have a project, let's say that's going to take $20,000 to complete, and it's a piece of your menu, you can be very honest and say, this is a $20,000 project. This other is 50. This is 100. These are kind of what they are. And people might go, oh, I can't do that. You say, well, would you like to be a part of it? And at what level do you think you're comfortable? But you need to be clear about what's needed so that people may actually surprise you. I sat one time with somebody who I didn't know had any capacity at all, but I just loved her. She'd been a prior giver and had some kids in the school. And I just said, well, we really need this, but it's $100,000. And she just looked at me, she said, well, I'll do that. And I go, you could have knocked me over with a feather. But I wasn't asking her for the 100. I was telling her what the project was. She believed in it, and there you go. Those moments are miracles, and you still remember them. A lot of times it takes much more research and much more practice. But to Sally's point, we have to make it, and maybe be honest at the beginning of the event to say, this isn't just an event. We actually are going to be asking you for something here at the end. So hold on, or know that the commercial is coming.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And here's what you do. None of us thought we'd ever be in this. Sally didn't. I didn't. Ever in a million years. I was a girl who would walk home from school rather than asking somebody for a dime to call my mom in a public payphone. That's how old I am. It was a dime to use a payphone. And who's ever seen those in 100 years? I did. I never thought I'd be the one to ask for this. It's not about us. It's about something that deeply outlasts you. It's about changing the lives of people. All of us in Catholic education are in the people business. We're in changing lives, in transforming society, in doing something that's of significant work. And our finding a way to connect people to that work creates a community of support with us. with a name like Paul, I know that we talked about, earthen vessels, and so did Jeremiah. We hold a treasure in earthen vessels, and there are treasures in the earthen vessels. It's our human organization, in the earthen vessels that is ourselves as ministers of advancement and development. So I would just say, let people surprise and support you. Let them become your friends. Let them take a hunk of your heart, that even now, as I move from so many places, I'm out of their lives, but what they've done for kids never goes away. And that's what I think I rejoice in.
I agree. I do too. And I will say this, in working in the College of Education, there are so many things that we were able to put in place to make something embedded in the system. And I guess twofold. One is to hold hope for future generations. We've just met, the dean and I just met with a number of people who are supporting various programs. And what we said is, we're doing okay today, but we want this program to continue tomorrow. And when I'm not here and the dean's not here, and maybe even when the donor's not here, we really want good programs to last. And so we really move towards trying to build strong foundations for good programs. And I think that's really and what I find is it certainly is rewarding to think of all the maybe endowments and the scholarships and the buildings and the labs and the centers that you can create, but they also help you, because when you continue to work with people, and you don't close off a gift where, oh, that person gave me that, now we're done, or this person gave me this, now we're done. If you don't think of the possibilities, that's your job. And if you don't think about them, nobody will. And they will either stay the way they are, or eventually some of them can go the wayside. So when you have something that is working well, really work hard to make it part of the system so that it really can be sustaining and continue to reap rewards for your institution in years to come. I think the best thing good leaders can do is leave their position in a place where the new leader can come in and things are running as well as they can, so they can only get better. And advancement is certainly one of those areas. And as I will say, as Sister's last comment, let people surprise and delight you. They really do. Sometimes I sit and worry and think, oh my goodness, where's this money going to come from? And then I'm so surprised and delighted that it does come when you really do just some of the simple things that we've talked about in these slides, and to motivate yourself to continue doing them, because when you do it, just like yoga or meditation, there is benefits, and you'll see them. They come in soft ways, but they will surprise and delight you.
And they will, whether you're asking for $100, and which is a significant gift for many, many people, or whether, as I had to one time ask for $10 million, it takes your breath away. You may not always get it, but again, the no isn't about you either. All you can pray is that you do the best job to be able to forward your mission. And to do that, you need more. So we'll have some ideas built into a course coming later, both as a micro-credential and a course here. And we'd be happy to share those resources. There are many Catholic resources as well around advancement. And those are really tremendous, and some national organizations that we think you'd probably do really well connecting with if this is your calling. And by the way, it's your calling the minute you're in leadership. You'll be searching for resources to do the things you want. There's no way around it. You're looking for resources. So to say as a leader, it's not part of my job, I'm sorry. It really is. So unless you find somebody who's tremendous, as I was always very lucky to find somebody who was going to hold my hand through this, it's your job too.
Right. And it's kind of unknown when you're going to school. Most of us land in our positions and then find out we're resource builders afterwards, but it's certainly a fun one.
It's a wonderful one. Mm-hmm. And there are some marvelous resources out there from some of the people who do this well on both university, high school, elementary levels. We'd be glad to try to connect you with them if you contact Dr. Sally Julian or Sister Paul McCaughey at DePaul University. In the meantime, we're delighted that you were with us today.
Yes.
Thank you, Sally.
Thank you.
I do, and delighted that you were with us today to be able to share Consummate Advancement 101.